ask you, what is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
Most recently, probably the aspect that you really can't control anything. That the
I love
truth is to let go.
just the way you said it was great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that once people grasp that, it becomes a little bit easier.
It's very hard. We're in a place where control is everything right now. We're
Yeah,
holding on so tight.
yeah,
The idea of letting go is probably overwhelming to even think about. But the
yeah,
truth is, when you really realize that, like when you talk about your children, right? Our job is to bring our children to the planet, to feed them and raise them and water them and sprinkle them and bring them to adulthood to be individuals,
mhm,
independent, self-sufficient. It's like your son, self-sufficient individuals.
mhm,
They are that are on their own path.
yeah,
We are here for our own purpose, not our mother's purpose or our father's purpose, our purpose.
yeah. When did you think you came into a realization of that?
Probably realistically, that clearly in the last year or so.
Really?
Mhm. It's ever evolving. It's like this kind of information, which is available everywhere. I mean, I've studied, so I had this full, which I didn't say specifically. When I say I had this mind blowing, like breakthrough,
Creative.
right?
Yeah.
This I achieved mental health. What I really had was a spiritual download. I
Okay.
really had, I had what people talk about. I had a transcendental experience,
Okay.
and it was 100% coming from outside of me. It was
Yeah.
coming through me.
Yeah.
And so that's another piece of trauma. And one of the things, a good friend of mine who's done as much analysis as I've had, we've kind of determined that when you go to therapy, what happens is you declutter the psyche, you declutter all that thinking, you pull apart all those things, all those experiences. And once you understand them, if anyone's done therapy, they know you, once you kind of figure out a situation, it dissipates and you can't even really remember what the problem was because it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And you peel back enough of that stuff. And what it does is it creates an opening, creates
Yes.
space.
Mhm.
And that's why I think, honestly, that it was the aspect of literally decluttering and clearing out that allowed this to come in.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Hmm.
I often, tell people my specialty is time management and organization, and a lot of that has to do with the mind. And so many people use the mind as a storage unit. They just keep putting more and more stuff, things in their mind, thinking, and it doesn't allow space for creativity because our minds are actually supposed to be creating; they're not supposed to be storing. So I love that you're saying that because that's one of the things I work on is taking out all those storage boxes. You don't have to store all that stuff in there. You have to figure it out and let it go or write it down or do something in order to open it up for creativity.
Right.
So that's great. When did Cozmeena, first of all, I know you said that that means kindness, but in what language does that mean
Well, it's a
kindness?
made up word. It's like Xerox or Kleenex
You
or
just made
anything
it
that
up.
isn't a thing. Right. So it's a made up word. And it started when I started knitting for my friends. So I have this like this unbelievable download. I have this unbelievable breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right. And all I want to do and all I'm doing is processing and I get it. And it's like literally, I don't know if this is going to be a random analogy, but years and years ago when there was a language in computer language called basic computer, and it was card stacked. You stacked a deck of cards and you fed it through a computer, much like counting bills, right?
Okay.
That's how fast my mind reprocessed my life.
Okay.
It was literally like a rapid unthinking it all and rethinking it in this new way.
Okay.
And while I was doing that, I was knitting. So here's the thing. In order to get out of your logical mind, you need to tap into your creative mind.
Yeah.
That's why taking a shower is when you get your ideas.
Yes. That's what I say.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's your taste, your touch, right? Taste, touch, sight, smell, and sound.
Okay.
All we have to do is activate those. Walk outside on a cold day, it'll change your whole day, mindset. If you're in it's why walking around the block really works.
Yes.
So anytime you're functioning, you're in if you shift to use one of your sensory centers, you will relax the thinking mind. So for
Okay.
me, knitting, and then I ended up, the part of Cozmeena was teaching women to knit as a functional meditation. Because when you're knitting, you're using tactile touch, and tactile sense is calming to the central nervous system when you use your fingertips.
Wow. Okay.
right? While patting a dog, patting an
Okay.
animal, all the same thing.
Got it.
Strumming a guitar,
Do you
anything
have to
that's using your
be
fingertips. Mhm.
eating pudding while you're knitting? How do you
Well, not
get
eating pudding. It's hard to eat and pudding and knit, but eating is, you know, unfortunately, eating is our go-to for soothing, but it's probably not our healthiest go-to
Yeah.
anymore. I think that's kind of, but so that's why, so I would knit for all the women who had taken care of me. And I knit, and I had measured, I bought a shawl for my mother-in-law, and I was this cool thing at my yoga studio. And I literally wrapped it to ready to send it for Christmas and unwrapped the whole thing in a very short, because I was juggling kids all the time. So unwrapped it all, measured it, repackaged it, and then made my own pattern for this big triangular shawl made out of a very thick wool on very fat needles. So what that means is it went really fast. So I could knit a
Yes.
shawl in like 10 hours. But I would knit that with that person in mind. So I'd pick the color and then I'd knit for her. So every stitch was infused with my love and my energy for her.
Oh, I
So that
love
when people put it
that.
on, so when they wrapped it, so it was wrapped in a certain way.
Oh,
So when you felt it, when you put it on, it felt like you were being held in a hug. It
oh, I
was
love
a virtual
that.
hug. Yeah. So the third friend I knit for brought it over one morning on a cold winter day. Our kids, it was a Sunday morning, our kids and they were just sitting around in their jammies, and I wrapped it around her and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this feels like a big hug." And then turned and caught herself in the mirror and said, "Oh no, no, it's like a pashmina. No, it's a Cozmeena."
Oh, no kidding.
So that's why, and then the name just stuck. And then it became the name for the whole movement.
The whole
So it's a
movement.
movement for improvement. It's a social vision for the 21st century. It's about, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is about the golden rule.
Yes.
Everything you look at, every situation you're in, if you want to shift it, think of it from someone else's point of view.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Oh, I love that story.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a
Wow.
lot of that kind of thing. That's why there's a book, because it's just a really long story.
Yeah.
But, and then I made these little hearts that I gave out to everyone. That's another really cool story that called the Pocket Heart, made from the Pocket Angel, which is another really cool time. And a few days after 9/11, just, there's so
Wow.
much beauty and there was so much grace in the tragedy
Yeah.
that I still get, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Like, no one remembers someone's death day ever, so we're always remembered. And over the years, it's been a lot to receive that much. But at the same time, how can spending the day receiving love from around the world be a bad thing?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That is interesting. I've never, until you said that, not that I've never thought of it before, but um, when somebody dies, yeah, like I know even just the few conversations I've had with stuff like that, it's kind of like, when was it? What year was it?
mhm.
Was it this date or this date? And for your date, your husband's date, yeah, no one ever forgets it. It's a
Yep.
consistent.
Yeah, and it's an honor, right? But one of the things within the first 5 years, I remember saying, and I was speaking at something, and I just said, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't do it anymore. Like, we we need to learn and move on. So the way I would look at 9/11, as far as how much time do we have, as far as
You're
how
fine.
do we learn from this? Okay? Because that's
Yeah.
really what we ultimately should be, taking this forward with.
Yeah.
Is if you look at the three-legged stool of human balance, mind, body, and spirit,
Okay.
right? If you look at where we are as a culture, 20 years ago especially, right? We had super served and continue to super serve academics, so much so, for an example, that when seniors in high school are getting 1600s on their SATs and 4.0s regularly and are getting tutored for better A's and still not getting into the colleges of their choices, have we not super served academics?
Got it.
When professional sports players or Olympians have to
Mhm.
take steroids to compete, have we not maximized physical fitness?
Yes.
But what have we done for the emotional leg?
Yes.
Nothing,
This is the thing.
nothing, zero.
Yes.
Maybe a little religion. And if we all take a hard look at that, that's going by the wayside. So the
Yeah.
things that were taught in kindergarten, or that there were things that were taught in Sunday school, of decency, of taking care of each other, of thinking of other people, that's gone. It never took hold really. And it's never been formally taught or even addressed in our situation. So emotional intelligence has been completely missed. So on the morning of 9/11, we tipped over. And we've been sitting in a victim place since. Because we can't circle back and ask ourselves, what did we do to bring that to our shores? Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Wait, you mean like what did we do?
What did we do? What was our behavior?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because that's what we do when we are enduring struggles. You have to ask yourself, what is your part in it?
Right. The only way you heal, the only way you move out of victimization is to take responsibility.
Yes. And many of us are doing that for our own, but we're not doing that as like a whole.
Right. Because we're 330 million different opinions right now.
Yeah.
Social media has exacerbated the idea
Yeah.
that we're all experts in whatever it is, in ourselves.
Yeah.
And that the only thing that matters is ourselves. But we are a collective. But the point, so that's the point. Did we ask when we went into all these countries to help them? Were we really helping? Or were we making airfields so we could land to get oil and make military bases?
This is the
Not that it
thing.
was wrong. I mean, we just didn't ask enough. We didn't do our due diligence.
Yeah.
We took a lot
Yeah.
under the
So,
guise of democracy. So
yeah.
we didn't have a lot of, I don't know there was a lot of consensus did they want it? Did they want it?
Yeah.
And that's the adolescent behavior. We think it's a good idea, so it's a good idea, rather than asking enough questions. I mean, I introduced myself as a recovering know-it-all
I remember you
because
saying that.
I was raised by narcissistic know-it-alls. We are a culture of know-it-alls. How can we know everything? Right?
Oh, that's
About another
great.
culture. So I'm not saying they were right at all. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it was in any way, but I'm saying we had a part in this.
Yeah.
Because we don't live in it, because everybody look at just the defensiveness of anything, of any given moment right now.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody came into our country and started doing things that we didn't like and certain factions didn't like, because it was an extraordinarily small group, right? Extremist group that did this. Well, look at our own country and our extremist groups. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, clearly.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing
Definitely.
with. But until we back up and say, wait a minute, maybe we aren't perfect. Maybe we didn't do our due diligence, and wow, I'm really sorry. Then you can have healing.
I'm really sorry. Yeah.
I'm really sorry, man. I didn't mean to hurt you. I
Wow.
didn't mean to hurt you.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional. Definitely wasn't. It was misunderstood. It was misconstrued.
Yeah.
That is in every single day of our life, micro and macro.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. What's keeping us from getting to that point? I don't ever really see us getting to that point.
Leadership.
Leadership.
There's nobody leading.
Yeah.
There's nobody talking about this. And right now, the anger is winning, right? The anger and the victimization is winning.
Yeah.
And it's very loud. And it's being, and so we have a lot of what I would term, and this is no offense to anyone who's on whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, there's a lot of ignorance. And ignorance means you don't have the facts. Ignorance means you don't know the situation, that don't know the topic.
Yeah.
Because we've chosen not to know. And there's so much doubt because there's been so much corruption.
That's the thing.
Because power leads to corruption.
Yeah.
Or perceived corruption. And that's where we are. So we're in a place where no one believes anybody. Everything's in doubt. Therefore, everything's a fight because you can't trust.
Yeah.
But again, 20 years from now, when there's the women's movement, the racial movement, all of that stuff's going to look really different. In 2030, the white America is in a minority.
I agree with that.
10 years from now.
I was just watching a Dr. Phil on that.
Yeah. So, and that's all good. Like the point is that, we have to share. We have to share.
What do you mean by that?
We have to share. Everyone, like that's the part of that hold on, because I've got to control my little piece. Well, it's in the letting go where the grace is. It's in the letting go where the richness is.
Yeah.
Because that's where the vulnerability is. Because on the other side, nobody's going to hurt you if you share. They're just going to appreciate it. At least I hope. That's philosophical. But,
Yeah.
We can't know until we try.
Yeah. One of the things that comes up a lot in and around these podcasts or coaching is the word disempower. And I want to ask, what was the most disempowering belief you had in your life, and what do you believe now?
You know, I read that when you wrote that. My first reaction,
Tell me.
it wasn't a, well, okay, it can be a belief that I was really fat and really ugly
Really? When was this?
my entire life. And I look back on pictures now and I go, oh my God, I was beautiful. I was
Yeah.
handsome.
I'm
And I
doing
was
that too
thin.
now. Yeah.
I had a beautiful body. No way. I mean, I'm the poster child for that, for body dysmorphia and the whole never being told that you were pretty and never being told that you had a nice body and never, ever being told by the parent generation that I was raised in because
Yeah.
they thought that would make me vain.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in fact, they were in fact vain. So it's just interesting, the hypocrisy in the whole thing. But yeah, now I would say, and I even feel it now, but over time I've gotten better. But even 10 years from now, I'll look back at where I am today and be like, oh my God, I was beautiful. I looked great.
What?
Right. So you just, but that would be it. That just,
It's
that
so,
we were really hard on ourselves. I was
yeah.
really hard on myself.
It's so interesting that you're saying that. I do journal readings every Monday. I read from my old journals from like when I was 15, 16.
Wow.
And I read them in chronological order. So I started, 25 episodes ago when I was 12. I'm now 15 in my journals. And it's interesting. I just said this yesterday that, I was reading a journal entry, and in the journal entry, I was writing about two boys that were hitting on me, that were like telling me that I was pretty or flirting with me or whatever. And I was so excited in my journal entry. And I made a note, because I go back and forth between the audience and my book, and I give like commentary on what I'm reading. And I stated just that. I'm like, it's so crazy how now, like looking back now, I viewed myself my whole life as being an ugly person, like not a beautiful female. So it's so interesting that, and there's been several entries, over the course of the years I've been writing or reading, where I am getting hit on by men, like I'll write a little blurb, like the boy at McDonald's said I was pretty or whatever. But I never like internalized that. And I was talking about that yesterday as far as why did I not internalize other people's views on me as far as how I looked, and whose views did I adopt? Like, where did I get that from? And who was the person that made me feel not pretty? And I don't know the answer to that, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's a
Yeah.
shame. It's a shame because we waste so much time thinking about it.
Yeah.
It takes up so much bandwidth, right? As they
Yes.
say, and
Yes.
that's where I remember saying to my mother how much I was telling my daughter, who had terrible acne when she was a teenager. I mean, just like life-changing acne. And she was a beautiful little girl. And I said to her, I was telling my mother that I told her she was beautiful every day. And my mother said, oh my God, Lisa, you're going to make her vain. It's almost
Isn't that
cruel,
interesting?
actually. It's
Wow.
almost cruel
Oh,
that
that's so
the rules of
interesting.
society overshadowed the needs of a child in her mind.
Yes.
Instead of making someone feel better,
Yeah.
telling them they were beautiful no matter what,
Yeah.
telling that unconditional love. So that if we could change that one thing, if we could just change unconditional love to our children. I mean, I think it is basic human nature to find ourselves faulted, and we spend our lifetimes trying to find that self-love.
Mhm.
And self-love, when I learned what that was, for me, it was learning that to love my bad self more than my good self, because the good stuff's easy to love. It's the bad stuff that's hard.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Like making a commitment to yourself to do that?
Yeah, just like saying, like, I love that biatch that's in me. I love that fighter. I love that edgy bitch. She's awesome. And she
Yes.
saved me. She's probably what's kept me going all this time. Not the nice one that was acquiescing to everyone. No, I gotta
Ye
love my bad self. My bad self is awesome.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Aw. Oh, you're so cute. We did it again.
That's great.
Yeah, we're just so hard on ourselves, and especially as women. But men are too, honestly. Men are taking a lot of blows these days. And I
Yeah.
love men. Men are good. They're just doing their best as well. And
Yeah.
women have created men. Mothers create sons.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.